Have you ever witnessed something that science said was impossible? I'm Sarah Thompson, a NICU nurse at Minneapolis Medical Center, and I never thought I'd be telling this story, not as a medical professional, and certainly not as a mother. What I'm about to share isn't just about the world's smallest surviving baby, though at just 370 grams, smaller than a can of soda, that would be remarkable enough. This is a story about defying medical odds, about a time when everything I knew as a healthcare professional was challenged. It's about a baby who rewrote medical history and touched countless lives across the country. But perhaps the most extraordinary part of this story isn't just about how small she was, it's about how she came into this world. Let me take you back to where it all began. As a NICU nurse at Minneapolis Medical Center for 8 years, I've witnessed countless miracles and heartbreaks behind these mint-green walls. Every day, I help care for babies who arrive too early, too small, or too sick. Some weighing no more than a pound, fighting for every breath through tubes and wires. I've learned to celebrate the smallest victories, a baby's first independent breath, a few gained ounces, tiny fingers finally strong enough to grip mine. But I've also learned to brace for heartbreaks, to hold parents' hands through their darkest hours. That's what 8 years in the neonatal intensive care unit teaches you. My colleagues often joke that I practically live here. They're not entirely wrong. Between my regular shifts and voluntary overtime, I've spent more nights in the unit than at home. Each tiny patient becomes part of our family, their struggles becoming our own. We celebrate their victories and mourn their setbacks together. You need a life outside these walls, Sarah, Dr. Anderson, our chief neonatologist, would often tell me. But how do you explain that this isn't just a job? That each beeping monitor, each tiny heartbeat, each successful recovery story makes all the sleepless nights worthwhile? October 12th, 2023 started like any other night shift. I had just finished my rounds, checking on our newest arrival, a set of twins born at 32 weeks. As I was changing out of my scrubs, something felt different. After years of watching expectant mothers, you develop a sort of sixth sense about these things. My husband, John, a biomedical engineer, and I had been trying for a baby for 2 years. Every month brought hope, followed by disappointment. As a medical professional, I knew the statistics, understood the challenges, but nothing prepared me for what I saw that morning. The pregnancy test was supposed to be too early to show anything. Yet there they were, 2 clear lines. My hands trembled as I called John. "Can you come to the hospital?" My voice cracked with emotion. "Sarah, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I think we're going to have a baby." The joy in his voice matched my own racing heart. That evening, we celebrated with takeout from our favorite diner, making plans and sharing dreams. But underneath my happiness lurked an inexplicable unease, a shadow I couldn't quite name. 5 weeks later, everything changed. I was reviewing charts in the NICU when sudden, sharp cramps doubled me over. The world blurred as colleagues rushed me to emergency care, blood soaking through my scrubs. In moments, I shifted from caregiver to patient. During the ultrasound, 3 things told me something was terribly wrong. The technician's furrowed brow, the sudden appearance of Dr. Roberts, our head radiologist, and the deafening silence in the room. "Sarah," Dr. Roberts finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm, "you have what we call an angular pregnancy. The embryo has implanted in the corner between your uterus and fallopian tube." The words hit me like a physical blow. Angular pregnancy, one of the most dangerous forms of ectopic pregnancy. Survival rate, less than 0.1%. Risk of uterine rupture, extremely high. I knew these statistics by heart, had counseled other mothers through similar situations. "We need to terminate immediately, Doctor," Roberts continued. The risks are too high. You could lose your uterus or worse. But something deep inside me rebelled against the medical facts. How many times had I witnessed tiny miracles in the NICU? Babies who defied every statistical probability. From somewhere deep inside came a voice I barely recognized as my own. No. The word was quiet, but firm. I want to wait. Dr. Roberts looked at me with a mix of sympathy and concern. Sarah, you know the risks better than most. As a medical professional, I know, I interrupted. But right now, I'm not just a nurse. I'm a mother. That moment marked the beginning of the most challenging journey of my life, one that would put everything I knew about medicine, faith, and survival to the ultimate test. The medical records spread across my desk painted a stark picture through numbers and charts. As a NICU nurse, I'd seen thousands of these reports, but never with my name at the top. Each reading told part of an increasingly worrying story. Let's review your latest results, Dr. Chen said, pulling up my 3D ultrasound on the screen. The maternal fetal medicine specialist pointed to various measurements with a laser pointer, each one falling well outside the normal range. Blood pressure, 160/95, dangerously high for early pregnancy, fetal heart rate, fluctuating between 165 to 180 beats per minute. Placental blood flow, less than 20% of normal volume fetal size, measuring 2.1 weeks behind gestational age HCG levels, rising at only 60% of expected rate. The 3D ultrasound image showed our tiny baby, barely the size of a grape, precariously positioned in that dangerous corner where my uterus met the fallopian tube. Modern medical technology made every detail crystal clear, too clear perhaps. I could see exactly why 7 doctors had recommended termination. Sarah, I need you to understand what these numbers mean, Dr. Chen spoke gently, knowing I understood but needing to ensure everything was clear. The placenta isn't just struggling to grow, it's fighting to survive. See this area here? She pointed to a dark spot on the screen. This should be bright with blood flow. Instead, we're seeing significant compromise. I watched as she took new measurements, each one confirming what we already knew. The baby was falling further behind in growth with each passing day. The position wasn't just unusual, it was dangerous. The strain on my body was evident in every test result. Your blood pressure is particularly concerning, she continued, showing me the trending chart. We're seeing spikes that could indicate the beginning of preeclampsia. This early in pregnancy, that's a serious red flag. As a medical professional, I understood every implication. Each number, each measurement, each image told me this pregnancy was unlikely to succeed. The statistical probability of survival was vanishingly small. But then came a moment that no medical chart could capture. As Dr. Chen moved the ultrasound wand, our tiny baby shifted position. Just slightly, just for a moment. That tiny movement, barely visible on the screen, spoke louder than any number or chart. "The baby's still fighting," I whispered. Dr. Chen's expression softened. After 20 years in maternal fetal medicine, she knew that sometimes the most important things couldn't be measured in numbers or captured in charts. "Yes," she agreed quietly. "But the question is, at what risk to you both?" The hospital's main conference room felt strangely intimate that Thursday morning. Around the large oak table sat Minneapolis Medical Center's most experienced specialists, 7 doctors whose combined experience exceeded 150 years. I knew each face, had worked with them all, but never like this. Dr. Lewis, our head of obstetrics, spoke first. She'd delivered over 5,000 babies in her 30-year career. "The numbers are unambiguous," she began, her voice gentle but firm. With an angular pregnancy this severe, we're looking at a 90% risk of uterine rupture by week 20. Dr. Martinez from Maternal Fetal Medicine pulled up my latest scans. The placental attachment is critically compromised. Even with bed rest and constant monitoring, we're seeing dangerous patterns in blood flow. One by one, they presented their concerns. Dr. Wilson, high-risk pregnancy. The strain on your cardiovascular system is already severe. Dr. Evans, fetal medicine. Development is falling further behind each week. Dr. Chen. The latest blood work shows concerning trends. Dr. Roberts. The imaging leaves no room for optimism. Dr. Thompson. The risks far outweigh any potential benefits. Then came a voice from the door. Dr. Anderson, my mentor and chief of neonatology for 25 years, had been quietly observing. "I'd like to present another perspective," he said, walking to the table. "In my career, I've witnessed cases that defied every medical prediction. Sarah's baby is still showing signs of fight, stable heartbeat, movement, continued growth despite the odds." The room fell silent. Dr. Anderson spread out a different set of charts. "Yes, the risks are enormous. Yes, the statistics are against us. But if Sarah is willing to take this chance, knowing all the risks, I believe she deserves our support." 7 against 1. The tension in the room was palpable. "We'll give it 1 week," Dr. Lewis finally conceded. 7 days to see if there's any improvement. "But Sarah," she looked at me intently, "if things worsen, you must be prepared to make a difficult decision." I nodded, grateful for even this small chance. Sometimes hope begins with just one person willing to see beyond the numbers. Day 1. John transformed our bedroom into a miniature medical station. As a biomedical engineer, he approached our challenge methodically. "We'll track every variable," he said, setting up monitors. "Blood pressure, fetal movement, maternal vitals, everything." Day 2. My NICU colleagues created a support schedule that left no hour uncovered. "We've got your back," Lisa, my closest colleague, assured me. They brought healthy meals, shared night shifts, and kept detailed observation logs. Day 3, the parents of Preemie's support group welcomed us warmly. "Statistics said my twins had a 5% chance," shared Maria, cradling her now healthy 6-month-olds. Sometimes hope is stronger than numbers. Day 4, Dr. Anderson visited daily, often staying late to review John's meticulous data. "Keep fighting," he encouraged, showing me subtle improvements in the latest readings. Every small victory counts. Day 5, a tiny breakthrough. Morning ultrasound showed blood flow improved to 25% of normal. "It's still critical," Dr. Chen admitted, "but it's movement in the right direction." Day 6. The baby's movements became more noticeable. John's monitoring showed heart rate stabilizing at 158 beats per minute. My blood pressure readings began trending downward. Day 7. The final assessment. Dr. Chen performed the ultrasound while the entire medical board observed. John squeezed my hand as we waited. "There's been measurable improvement," Dr. Chen announced. "Placental blood flow is now at 35%. The baby has gained 12 grams. Still high risk, but—" Dr. Anderson stepped forward. "Enough improvement to justify continuing, if that's what Sarah wants." The board agreed to proceed with close monitoring. Looking at John's face, my colleague's relief, and Dr. Anderson's quiet smile, I knew we'd just witnessed our first miracle. The tiniest member of our family wasn't giving up, and neither would we. Week 23 arrived with a sense of looming crisis. That morning, as I prepared for my regular checkup, something felt different. My medical training screamed warnings at every subtle change, the slight swelling in my hands, the growing pressure in my chest, the way my vision occasionally blurred at the edges. Dr. Chen's face turned grave as she reviewed my latest vitals. Blood pressure, 178 over 100, critically high, protein in urine, +3, severe, oxygen saturation, 94%, dropping, fetal heart rate, irregular, ranging from 145 to 172. Sarah, she said quietly, we're looking at severe preeclampsia. Your body is starting to fail. The 3D ultrasound revealed our tiny fighter still holding on. The measurements appeared on screen. Weight estimate, 370 grams, 13 ounces. Length, 20.3 centimeters. Head circumference, 18.2 centimeters. To put this in perspective, I'd seen bananas that weighed more than our baby. In my years as a NICU nurse, I'd never cared for an infant this small who survived. The smallest success story in our unit had been 425 grams. Dr. Anderson joined us, studying the readings intently. The placental blood flow has dropped to 15%, he noted. The baby's not getting enough nutrients to sustain growth. Then came the most critical measurement, the Doppler flow readings of the umbilical cord. The usual whoosh-whoosh rhythm was barely detectable, showing reversed end diastolic flow, a sign that the baby was in serious distress. We have two choices, Doctor. Chen explained, her voice steady but urgent. We can deliver now, giving the baby a small but real chance at survival, or… She didn't need to finish. We all knew the or. I placed my hand on my barely visible bump, feeling a faint flutter of movement. Even now, against impossible odds, our tiny fighter was moving, living, struggling to survive. What are the exact numbers? John asked, his engineer's mind seeking concrete data. At 370 grams, survival rate is less than 10%, Dr. Anderson answered honestly. But if we wait, trying to gain more weight. He paused, looking at my deteriorating vitals. We risk losing both mother and child. The moment of decision had arrived. Every medical fact, every statistical probability, every bit of my professional training said this was impossible. But in that moment, feeling another tiny flutter beneath my hand, I made the choice that would change everything. Let's give her a chance, I whispered. The next hours unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. I'd witnessed countless emergency C-sections from the other side, but nothing prepared me for being the one on the table. 12 medical professionals in surgical blue moved with practiced precision around me. "Team positions!" Dr. Lewis called out, her voice steady through her surgical mask. "Let's review one final time." From my position on the operating table, I listened as each person stated their role. Doctor. Lewis, lead surgeon, Doctor. Anderson, neonatal team leader. Dr. Martinez, assistant surgeon. 2 NICU specialists, ready for immediate newborn care. 3 neonatal nurses, equipment and critical care support. 2 anesthesiologists, monitoring my vitals. 2 surgical nurses, instruments and assistants. 1 perfusionist, standing by for potential complications. The operating room was kept at exactly 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 29.4 degrees Celsius, warmer than usual to help protect our tiny baby from temperature shock. Special warming equipment hummed quietly, prepared for a newborn weighing less than a pound. Blood pressure, 185 over 105, called out Dr. Parker, the anesthesiologist. We need to move quickly. As they prepped me for the spinal block, I caught John's eye above his surgical mask. He sat by my head, holding my hand, his biomedical engineering background helping him understand every monitor's beep and flash. "Beginning incision," Dr. Lewis announced. I felt pressure but no pain. "Significant blood vessel involvement. Suction, please." The minutes stretched like hours. Through the surgical drape, I could hear the tension in their voices as they worked through the complicated position of the baby. "Careful. Careful, Dr. Lewis murmured. The uterine wall is extremely thin here. Then suddenly, a flurry of activity. Baby's head visible, Dr. Martinez called out. Extreme care needed for extraction. The room held its collective breath. These doctors and nurses weren't just my colleagues anymore. They were 12 heroes fighting to save my baby's life. Almost there. Dr. Lewis's voice was focused, intense. Suction ready, and here we go. The next moment would stay with me forever. A silence fell over the room as our tiny daughter emerged, smaller than any baby I'd ever seen. No bigger than my palm, she looked impossibly fragile. But what happened next would defy every medical expectation we had. The impossible happened in a fraction of a second. A cry. Not the weak mewling we sometimes hear from severely premature babies, but a clear, distinct wail that pierced the surgical silence. Every person in that operating room froze, wide-eyed above their surgical masks. "My God," whispered Dr. Anderson, who had attended thousands of premature births. "She's breathing on her own." Emily Grace Thompson, 370 grams, 13 ounces, had just done what medical textbooks said was impossible. Babies this small, this premature, don't cry at birth. They don't breathe independently. But Emily hadn't read those textbooks. The NICU team sprang into action, their initial shock giving way to practiced precision. The vital signs started appearing on the monitors. Heart rate, 162 beats per minute, strong and steady. Oxygen saturation, 85% on room air, unprecedented. Temperature, 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit, maintaining well. APGAR score at 1 minute, 6, remarkably high for her size. "I need a 2.0 ET tube," called out Dr. Anderson, but then paused, watching in amazement as Emily continued breathing on her own. "Hold that. She's maintaining saturation." Through my tears, I watched as they placed her in the specialized warming unit. She was so tiny that her entire body fit in Dr. Anderson's palm. Her skin was nearly translucent, her ears still not fully formed, but her chest rose and fell with determined regularity. "In 30 years, Dr. Lewis said, finishing my sutures, "I've never seen anything like this." The neonatal nurse called out her measurements. Length, 20.3 centimeters, smaller than a standard pencil. Head circumference, 18.2 centimeters. Foot length, 4.1 centimeters, about the size of my thumb. As they prepared to transfer her to the NICU, Dr. Anderson paused beside my head. His eyes crinkled above his mask in what I knew was a smile. "You know, Sarah," he said softly, placing his hand on my shoulder, "sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart." Emily's first cry had done more than defy medical science. It had touched something deeper in all of us, a reminder that life's greatest miracles often come in the smallest packages. As they wheeled her incubator past me, I reached out and touched the clear plastic wall. "Fight on, little one," I whispered. Fight on. Our journey in the NICU began behind a wall of advanced medical technology. Emily's incubator, a state-of-the-art giraffe omnibed, maintained a precisely controlled microenvironment. Temperature, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 80% to protect her paper-thin skin. Oxygen level, carefully monitored and adjusted hourly. Her tiny body disappeared beneath a network of wires and tubes. A ventilator tube, smaller than a coffee straw. 3 IV lines for nutrition and medications, 5 monitoring leads, tracking every heartbeat. A pulse oximeter that glowed softly on her miniature foot. A CPAP device supporting her dime-sized lungs. As both a NICU nurse and a mother, I documented every milestone in her journey, week 1 to 2, Weight dropped to 340 grams, normal for preemies. First successful blood transfusion. Began responding to touch-through incubator portholes. Showed first signs of rooting reflex, week 3 to 4. Weight returned to birth weight, 370 grams. Reduced ventilator support by 10%. First attempt at colostrum swabs. Opened her eyes for the first time. Tiny slits of dark blue, week 5 to 6. Passed 400-gram milestone. Stable enough for first diaper change. Reduced humidity in incubator to 65%. First skin-to-skin contact, cleared by Dr. Anderson. Each day brought new challenges and tiny victories. The NICU staff, my colleagues turned family, created a special care protocol for Emily. Every 3 hours, like clockwork. Vital signs check, position change to prevent pressure points, oral care with breast milk, assessment of breathing effort, medication administration, environmental stress reduction. She's writing her own medical textbook, Dr. Anderson would say during rounds. Emily defied expectations daily. While most micro-preemies need increased support over time, she consistently showed signs of improvement. Breathing, less ventilator support needed. Heart, strong, steady rhythm without medication. Digestion, tolerating minimal feeds. Brain, responding to stimuli appropriately. We measured progress in grams and millimeters, celebrating each tiny step forward. The nurses created a milestone chart on her incubator wall, marking each achievement with a tiny star. Through those first critical 40 days, we watched our little fighter prove that sometimes the smallest warriors have the strongest spirits. Day 45 in the NICU marked a turning point in Emily's care. She had reached 550 grams, still tiny, but strong enough for the next phase of her treatment, Kangaroo Care. As a NICU nurse, I'd explained this method to countless parents, but experiencing it firsthand was transformative. The research is compelling, Dr. Anderson explained during rounds, pointing to the latest studies displayed on his tablet. Skin-to-skin contact doesn't just provide comfort, it literally rewires the baby's brain for optimal development. The numbers told the story. 33% faster weight gain, 25% better sleep patterns, 50% reduction in stress hormones, improved oxygen saturation, stabilized heart rates, enhanced immune system response. Our first session was just 30 minutes. I remember the delicate choreography required to transfer Emily from her incubator. 3 nurses helped position her, still connected to monitors and tubes, against my bare chest. She was smaller than my hand, her skin translucent like tissue paper. "Watch her vitals," the charge nurse instructed, but we all saw it immediately. Heart rate, stabilized at 155, oxygen saturation, improved from 92% to 98%. Temperature, maintained perfectly at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Breathing, deeper, more regular. Each day, we increased the duration. Week 7, 2 one-hour sessions daily. Week 8, 4 hours total, split into morning and evening. Week 9, 6 hours of skin-to-skin contact. Week 10, 8 hours, with John taking afternoon shifts. Week 11, achievement of our goal, 10 hours daily. The transformation was remarkable. During Kangaroo Care, Emily gained weight 40% faster, required less oxygen support, showed improved brainwave patterns, began responding to our voices, developed more regular sleep cycles. John engineered a special recliner setup that allowed us to maintain skin-to-skin contact while managing Emily's medical equipment. "It's like a NASA mission control center," he joked, "but for growing our little astronaut." The nurses documented everything, creating what would later become a case study for micro-preemie care. But the most profound changes couldn't be measured by machines. The way she turned toward our voices, her tiny hand gripping my finger, the peaceful expression during our hours together. "This isn't just medicine," Dr. Anderson observed one evening, watching Emily sleep peacefully against my chest. "This is the science of love." After 90 days in the NICU, Emily's story became a testament to the powerful combination of modern medicine and unconditional love. The intersection was visible in every aspect of her care. The medical technology was extraordinary. Advanced incubator, $185,000 of precision engineering, vital sign monitors, providing 24/7 data, custom feeding pumps, delivering nutrition to the milliliter, specialized ventilation equipment, supporting each breath. But it was the human touch that brought these machines to life. Nurses adjusting positions with gentle hands, respiratory therapists who sang softly during treatments, physical therapists designing exercises for tiny limbs, parents providing hours of skin-to-skin contact. Dr. Anderson often used Emily's case during his rounds with medical students. "Look at these two charts," he'd say, pointing to her growth patterns. "This first one shows her progress with standard care. But look at what happened when we maximized human contact." The difference was striking. Before increased contact, weight gain 10 to 15 grams per day, oxygen needs stable but high, sleep patterns irregular, stress indicators elevated after maximizing human interaction, weight gain 25 to 30 grams per day, oxygen needs decreased by 40%, sleep patterns following natural cycles, stress indicators significantly reduced. "We're not just growing a baby," he'd explain. "We're nurturing a whole person. The machines keep her alive, but love helps her thrive." The night shift nurses started documenting what they called Emily's response pattern. Heart rate stabilized fastest during parent contact. Oxygen needs decreased during family reading time. Weight gain improved most on days with maximum Kangaroo Care. Brain activity peaked during voice recognition moments. Even the most skeptical specialists couldn't deny the data. Emily's case was becoming a perfect example of what Dr. Anderson called the love factor in micro-preemie care. "In medical school," he told me one evening, "they teach us that medicine is a science. But cases like Emily remind us that healing is also an art. Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in our pharmacy, it's in our hearts." After 120 days, Emily finally came home weighing 2,100 grams, 4.6 pounds. Still tiny, but mighty. Her discharge papers told an extraordinary story of development. Physical growth, weight, 5th percentile, exceeding micro-preemie expectations. Length, 16 inches, showing accelerated catch-up growth. Head circumference, following standard growth curve. Developmental milestones. Breathing, completely independent. Feeding, taking full bottles. Reflexes, all present and strong. Muscle tone, excellent for adjusted age. But numbers couldn't capture Emily's fighting spirit. From her first day home, she showed the same determination that had marked her NICU stay. Strong grasp reflex that could hold a finger for minutes. Alert eyes that tracked movement across the room. Responsive smile that appeared right on schedule. Clear preference for familiar voices. Her NICU nurse's final note read, "Emily didn't just survive, she taught us all how to thrive." The experience transformed my understanding of neonatal care. With support from Dr. Anderson and the hospital board, I established the Tiny Miracles Foundation. Our mission spanned 3 critical areas: research support, funding for micro-preemie survival studies, development of advanced care protocols, investigation of enhanced family integration methods, hospital training programs, specialized nursing certification courses, family support training for medical staff, implementation of progressive care techniques, sharing of best practices across facilities, family connection network, monthly support group meetings, mentor matching for new NICU parents, resource library and educational materials, emergency assistance fund. Emily's story became more than a medical case study. It became a blueprint for hope. The formula for her survival involved three essential elements: modern medicine, cutting-edge technology, skilled medical professionals, advanced treatment protocols, precise monitoring systems, the power of love, constant family presence, supportive medical team, community engagement, positive environment, unwavering faith, belief in possibilities, trust in the process, hope against odds, determination to survive. Dr. Anderson summarized it best during a foundation keynote speech. Medicine can create the conditions for survival, but it's love that creates the reason to live. Emily's case proves that sometimes the smallest patients teach us the biggest lessons, that in the space between science and miracle, there's room for hope. Today, Emily is a testament to what's possible when we combine medical excellence with boundless love. Her story continues to inspire families facing similar challenges, reminding us that every tiny life holds the potential for extraordinary impact. Thank you for taking time to witness this story with us. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Every story we share is meant to move and transform. If you found inspiration in today's tale, simply leave a 9 below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Until our next story unfolds.